The widow's home collapsed in snow, until the night opened his castle and his heart for her. The storm howled across the frozen valley. A poor widow's cottage crumbled beneath the weight of snow, her children shivering in the dark night. She thought all was lost, until a knight reined his horse beside her in the drifts, and carried her to his castle gates. But inside those stone walls, whispers spread like fire. Nobles sneered, servants gossiped, and a baron demanded the knight give his hand to wealth, not to a penniless mother. And just as the widow began to believe her family might find safety, a letter revealed her husband's shameful debt, and a stranger arrived to claim the knight's heart by force. Now honor, duty, and love collide beneath the chapel bells. Will compassion conquer scandal? Or will the walls of the castle close upon her once more? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The winter wind howled through the dark forest, carrying snowflakes that stung like tiny needles against Anna Muller's face. Inside their small timber-bird cottage, she pulled her children closer, wrapping them in the last threadbare blanket they owned. Her 8-year-old son Carl pressed against her right side, while 5-year-old Marie huddled on her left, both shivering despite the meager warmth of the dying fire. "Mama," Marie whispered, her small voice barely audible above the storm. "I'm so cold." Anna's heart ached as she rubbed her daughter's arms, trying to warm her. "I know, my sweet one. Just hold tight to me." The wind rattled the shutters, and above them, the roof creaked ominously. Anna had noticed the beams sagging earlier that day, but there had been nothing she could do except pray they would hold through the night. Carl lifted his head, his eyes wide with fear. "What's that sound, Mama?" Before Anna could answer, a terrible groan echoed through the cottage. Instinct took over as she grabbed both children and pulled them toward the door. The roof gave way with a thunderous crack, and snow poured in like a white avalanche. The force of it knocked them forward, and Anna barely managed to shield her children as they tumbled onto the frozen ground outside. Mary's terrified scream pierced the night as their home collapsed behind them. Anna scrambled to her feet, ignoring the bite of snow against her bare soles. Their few possessions, the wooden bowls her husband had carved, the quilt her mother had made, the precious box containing her wedding ring, all lay buried beneath the ruins of their home. "We must go," Anna said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. She scooped Marie into her arms and grabbed Carl's hand. "Hold tight to me, Carl. Don't let go." They pushed forward into the storm, the wind tearing at their nightclothes. Anna's feet had long since gone numb, but still she walked, one painful step after another. The children's weight grew heavier with each passing hour, but she refused to stop. To stop was to die, and she would not let her children perish in this merciless night. Carl stumbled beside her, his small hand growing slack in hers. "Mama, I can't walk anymore." Anna's arms trembled as she knelt in the snow, gathering both children against her chest. Marie had stopped shivering, a dangerous sign, Anna knew. She pulled them closer, trying to share what little warmth remained in her body. "Just a little further," she promised, though she had no idea where they were going. The storm had turned the familiar forest into a maze of white shadows. "We must keep moving." She forced herself up again, her legs shaking with exhaustion. The children felt like lead weights in her arms now, but she refused to let them go. One step, another. The storm began to ease as the sky lightened with the first hint of dawn. Finally, through half-frozen eyelashes, Anna saw the outline of a road ahead. Hope gave her strength for a few more steps, but it wasn't enough. Her legs buckled, and she fell to her knees in the snow, still clutching her children. They were so still, so quiet. Fear gripped her heart as she tried to rouse them. "Carl? Marie? Please, my darlings, open your eyes." A sound cut through the morning air, the steady rhythm of hoofbeats. Through the swirling snow, a mounted figure appeared, tall and imposing against the pale dawn sky. The rider pulled his horse to an abrupt halt, and Anna saw the glint of armor beneath his heavy cloak. Sir Lucas von Falkenhoff stared down at the Konitsa. Seen before him, a woman in nothing but a thin nightdress, barefoot in the snow, desperately holding two small children against her chest. His expression shifted from surprise to concern as he took in their dire condition. Anna looked up at him, her pride forgotten in the face of her children's need. Her voice came out as a hoarse whisper. "Please, sir, help my children." The knight's face softened as he quickly dismounted, his boots crunching in the snow as he strode toward them. The last of Anna's strength failed her as darkness crept into the edges of her vision. The last thing she saw was Sir Lucas reaching out to catch her as she slumped forward. Still holding her precious children close, Sir Lucas von Falkenhoff's strong arms lifted Anna as if she weighed no more than a feather. She clutched her children tightly as he settled them all onto his horse, his heavy cloak falling around them like a protective wing. The warmth of his body and the stallion beneath them sent blessed heat through her frozen limbs. "Hold fast," he murmured, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Falkenhoff Castle lies just beyond these woods. The horses' hooves crunched through the snow as they made their way through the silent forest. Anna's children, too weak to speak, pressed close against her. The gentle swaying motion nearly lulled her back into the darkness that had claimed her on the road, but she forced her eyes to stay open. Through the swirling snow, massive stone walls emerged, rising like a mountain before them. Torches flanked the great wooden doors of Falkenhoff Castle, their flames dancing in the wind. As they approached, the doors groaned open, spilling golden light into the snowy courtyard. A tall, thin man in dark clothing stood in the doorway, his face twisted in shock at the sight of them. "My lord," the steward's voice cracked with disbelief. "What is the meaning of this?" "These people need shelter, Wagner," Sir Lucas said firmly, his tone brooking no argument. "Send for Frau Berta at once. We need hot broth and blankets." The castle's servants emerged from the shadows, their curious whispers echoing off the stone walls. Anna felt their stares as Sir Lucas carefully helped her and the children dismount. Her bare feet touched the frozen cobblestones, and she stumbled, but the knight's steady hand caught her elbow. "There now!" A motherly voice cut through the murmurs. A plump woman with gray-streaked hair hurried forward, already unwrapping a thick woolen blanket. "Let's get you warm." Dearie, the woman, who must be Frau Berta, wrapped the blanket around Anna's shoulders while another servant draped blankets around Karl and Marie. They were ushered inside, through torch-lit corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Anna gaped at the tapestries adorning the walls, the ceiling so high above that it disappeared into shadow. The castle was both magnificent and forbidding, its vast stone halls carrying an ancient chill that even the scattered braziers couldn't fully dispel. Frau Berta led them to a small chamber near the servants' quarters, where a fire already crackled in the hearth. "It's humble," she said, "but warm and dry." "It's more than generous," Anna whispered, her voice rough from the cold. The room, though simple, seemed like a palace compared to their collapsed cottage. Sir Lucas appeared in the doorway, his tall frame blocking the light from the corridor. "You will stay until you have regained your strength," he declared, his kind eyes meeting Anna's. "I insist upon it." Behind him, Anna could see the steward's disapproving frown, could hear the servants' worried murmurs. A widow and her children, common as dirt, given shelter in Falkenhoff Castle? It went against every rule of proper society. "My lord," Wagner began, "perhaps the village inn." "They stay," Sir Lucas said quietly, but with such authority that the steward fell silent. He gave Anna a small bow. "Rest now. Frau Berta will bring you hot broth shortly." After they had eaten the rich soup and changed into borrowed nightclothes, Anna lay in the narrow bed with her children nestled against her. Karl and Marie had fallen into exhausted sleep, their faces finally peaceful in the dying firelight. But Anna remained awake, listening to the strange silence of the castle. It was a different kind of quiet than their cottage, deeper, older, filled with the whispers of centuries. The stone walls that surrounded them offered protection from the deadly storm, yet Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were also a cage of sorts. Such unexpected kindness from a nobleman would surely come with a price. As she stared into the darkness, she wondered what that price might be, and whether she would be able to pay it when the time came. The fire popped softly, sending shadows dancing across the ceiling, while outside, the winter wind continued to howl around Falkenhof's ancient towers. Dawn crept through the narrow windows of Falkenhof Castle as Anna made her way down worn stone steps to the kitchen. The scent of baking bread and wood smoke drew her forward like a beacon. She paused in the doorway, watching the cook and kitchen maids hurrying about their morning tasks. "Begging your pardon," Anna said softly, stepping into the warmth. "But I cannot sit idle while enjoying your kindness. Might I help?" The cook, a stout woman named Gertrude, looked up from her kneading with flour-dusted hands. "Sir Lucas said you're to rest," she replied, though her eyes softened at Anna's earnest expression. "Please," Anna insisted. "I've managed my own household these past years. My hands know work." She spotted a basket of torn aprons and linens. "I see you have mending to be done." Gertrude hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. Show me what you can do." Anna settled onto a wooden stool by the hearth, grateful for its warmth. Her fingers moved swiftly, making neat stitches that drew admiring glances from the kitchen maids. As morning stretched toward noon, the initial awkwardness melted like frost in sunshine. The servants shared bits of castle gossip, and Anna found herself smiling at their tales, but not all words were kind. A widow with 2 children, taken in by Sir Lucas himself. She overheard one maid whisper to another. "It isn't proper." "Hush," Gertrude scolded. "The lady works hard and asks little." That's more than can be said for some who visit this castle. Days passed in a rhythm of work and small kindnesses. Anna's children played in the kitchen corners, helping with simple tasks and winning smiles even from the sternest servants. Then came the announcement that Sir Lucas's uncle, Lord Heinrich, would return from his travels. The castle bustled with preparation for the welcoming feast. That morning, as Anna helped in the stables, she noticed smoke curling from fresh hay. Without hesitation, she dragged the smoldering bundle away from Sir Lucas's prized stallion, saving both beast and barn from disaster. That evening, the great hall blazed with candlelight. Villagers and minor nobles filled the long tables, while Anna sat quietly among the servants, content to watch the festivities. Her children had been given special treats and put to bed early. Sir Lucas stood at the high table, his uncle beside him. His dark hair caught the candlelight as he raised his goblet. "Friends and neighbors," his voice carried clearly through the hall. "Today we celebrate not only my uncle's return, but also an act of quick thinking and courage." Anna's cheeks warmed as heads turned toward her. "This morning, Mistress Anna Muller saved my finest horse and perhaps the entire stable from fire. Her swift action prevented what could have been a terrible loss. I ask you all to drink to her health." Goblets raised amid murmurs of approval, though some faces showed disapproval at such attention given to a peasant widow. Anna ducked her head, uncomfortable with the notice but warmed by Lucas's kind words. As servants cleared the tables, Anna helped gather empty plates. She paused in an alcove shadow when she heard Lord Heinrich's stern voice from the adjoining chamber. "Lucas, you've delayed too long. I've opened negotiations with Baroness Adelaide's family. The match is perfect. Her dowry will restore Falkenhof's fortunes." "Uncle, I had hoped," Lucas began, but Heinrich cut him off. "Hope is a luxury we cannot afford. The Baroness is everything we need, wealthy, well-bred, and eager for the match. You'll meet her next week." Anna's hands trembled on the stack of plates she held. The castle's shelter suddenly felt as fragile as her collapsed cottage roof. She had known this peace couldn't last, but the pain of reality struck sharp and cold as winter wind. Silently, She slipped away from the voices, carrying her burden of dishes and heavier thoughts toward the kitchen. The feast's warmth had faded, leaving only the chill certainty that she and her children were indeed strangers within these ancient walls. The morning sun glinted off fresh snow as Lucas strode across the castle courtyard. He paused at the sight before him. Anna sat on a stone bench, a small boy of perhaps 6 years perched beside her. The scullery-maid's son, Thomas, traced letters in the snow with a stick while Anna guided his hand. "See? That makes the word horse," Anna said softly. The boy's face lit up with pride. Lucas watched, warmth spreading through his chest despite the winter chill. When Thomas scampered off to show his mother his newfound skill, Lucas approached Anna. "That was kind of you," he said, settling beside her on the bench. "Few would take time to teach a servant's child." Anna's cheeks flushed pink from more than just the cold. "Every child deserves to know their letters, my lord. My late husband believed that too." Something in her voice made Lucas turn toward her. "Tell me about him, if you would." Anna's fingers twisted in her worn skirts. "Michael was a carpenter, skilled with his hands, gentle in spirit. We married young. I was 16, he 20. Times were hard, but he never lost his smile." She paused, blinking back tears. "The fever took him last spring, leaving debts I couldn't pay. And now you're here," Lucas said softly. "By your grace, my lord." Anna stood, brushing snow from her skirts. "I should return to my duties." "Walk with me first?" The words escaped before he could stop them. "The view from the battlements is fine in the morning light." They climbed the narrow steps together, their breaths clouding in the crisp air. At the top, the world stretched white and endless before them. Anna gasped at the sight. "'Tis beautiful," she whispered. Lucas watched her face, seeing the wonder there, the quiet strength beneath her gentle manner. Something stirred in his heart, dangerous, impossible feelings he dared not name. Later that afternoon, his uncle cornered him in the study. "Nephew, we must speak." Heinrich's stern face brooked no argument. "I see how you look at the widow, uncle. No, listen well. We are nobles. Our duty is to preserve what generations before us built. The von Falkenhof name carries obligations." Heinrich's fingers drummed against the oak desk. "Wealth marries wealth. Birth marries birth. That is how it has always been, how it must be. Is there no room for kindness and nobility?" Lucas asked quietly. "Kindness, yes. Foolish attachment, no." Heinrich's voice hardened. "Remember who you are." As twilight gathered, Anna knelt in the castle chapel. Candles flickered before the altar as she pressed her hands together in prayer. "Lord, guide my path," she whispered. "I am grateful for this shelter, for Sir Lucas's mercy. But my children need stability, not charity that could vanish like morning mist." The chapel door creaked. Anna quickly wiped her eyes, rising to leave. Evening settled over Falkenhof like a heavy cloak. In the great hall, Lucas sat by the roaring fire, watching Anna's nimble fingers repair his torn riding cloak. Her head was bent to her task, firelight playing across her face, turning her brown hair to copper and gold. He found himself studying the gentle curve of her cheek, the way her lashes cast shadows in the flickering light. Such simple beauty, he thought, yet more affecting than all the painted ladies at court. The heavy tread of boots interrupted his reverie. Heinrich entered, his face set in grim lines. "The messenger returned from Baron Werner's estate," his uncle announced. "The betrothal agreement with Baroness Adelaide is all but complete. Only your signature remains needed." He fixed Lucas with a stern gaze. "The papers await in my study. We will settle this tonight." Lucas's fingers clenched on the arm of his chair. He saw Anna's hands still for just a moment before resuming their steady work, though her shoulders had tensed beneath her simple dress. "Yes, uncle," he said quietly, the words tasting like ashes in his mouth. The winter morning's peace shattered as boots thundered across Falkenhof's flagstones. A messenger, his cloak dusted with snow, burst into the great hall clutching a leather scroll case. Uncle Heinrich's eyes narrowed as he broke the seal and unfurled the parchment. "So," he declared, his voice cutting through the hall's murmurs, "the truth about our guest emerges at last." He thrust the documents at Lucas. "Your widow's husband was no mere stranger to Falkenhof. He died owing 3 seasons of unpaid service to this estate." Lucas scanned the records, his heart sinking. The precise columns of ink showed Johann Muller's mounting debt, missed days of labor, promised services left unfulfilled before his death. Though the sum was small, the implications were grave. The woman and her children are nothing more than debtors trying to avoid their obligations, Heinrich announced, loud enough for the servants gathering at the edges of the hall to hear. No doubt she thought to curry favor, perhaps even trap a nobleman's sympathy. "Uncle, you cannot mean," Lucas began, but Heinrich cut him off with a sharp gesture. "I mean exactly what I say. Her presence here undermines everything we stand for. Already the villagers whisper about your peculiar charity toward her. The news spread through the castle like wildfire. Servants who had welcomed Anna now turned away when she passed. Whispers followed her through corridors, debtor's widow and deceiver floating in her wake. Her children noticed the change, shrinking closer to her skirts when others approached. That evening, Anna stood in her small chamber, folding her few belongings into a bundle with trembling hands. Tears splashed onto the rough wool as she packed, but she forced herself to continue. A soft knock at the door made her start. "Enter," she called, hastily wiping her eyes. Lucas stepped inside, his face drawn with concern. "You need not leave," he said softly. "I must," Anna replied, her voice breaking. "I cannot allow my children to grow up bearing the shame of their father's debts. Already they feel the sting of others' scorn. Better we face honest poverty than live where every kindness is tainted by suspicion. The debts are not yours to bear," Lucas insisted. "You were not even at Falkenhof when they were incurred. Yet bear them we do," Anna said, gathering her children's small garments. "Each whisper, each turned back reminds us. We are grateful for your protection, my lord, but we cannot stay where we are not trusted." Lucas watched her pack, his hands clenched at his sides. "At least wait until morning. The roads are treacherous after dark." Anna nodded, though they both knew she planned to slip away before dawn. She could not bear a public departure, more eyes judging, more whispers following. But when the first pale light touched the castle walls, Lucas was already waiting in the courtyard. Anna emerged with her children, her bundle slung over one shoulder. Fresh snow had fallen in the night, unmarked except for Lucas's boots. "Stand aside, my lord," she pleaded. "Let us go with what dignity remains to us." "I cannot," he said, stepping forward. His voice rose, echoing off the stone walls. "The debts of the dead should not chain the living. You have brought nothing but grace and kindness to this house. Your children have brightened its halls with laughter not heard in years." Movement caught Anna's eye. Above them, Uncle Heinrich appeared at a window, his face dark with fury. Other faces joined his servants, guards, stable boys, all watching the scene unfold. "Please," Lucas continued, holding out his hand. "Stay, not as debtors, but as honored guests. Let me prove that not all at Falkenhof judge worth by old ledgers and cold coins." Anna stood frozen, snow gathering on her shoulders, her children pressing close against the bitter wind. Heinrich's shadow loomed above them, a reminder of all that stood against them. Yet Lucas remained before her, hand extended, his eyes filled with a warmth that defied the winter morning. The peaceful afternoon shattered as bells rang out across the valley. Shouts echoed through Falkenhof's corridors. Fire had caught in Wilhelm the miller's barn. Anna looked up from her mending, heart racing as she saw orange flames licking the winter sky through her chamber window. Without hesitation, she gathered her skirts and ran down the spiral staircase, nearly colliding with servants rushing to help. Outside, The bitter wind whipped snow and smoke together as villagers formed a line from the well to the blazing barn. Passing buckets hand to hand, Anna plunged into the effort, her fingers numbing as she gripped the icy bucket handles. The heat of the fire struck her face while the freezing wind bit at her back. Livestock bellowed in panic as men led them to safety, but then a mother's scream pierced the chaos. "My boy, Hans is still inside." Before anyone could stop her, Anna thrust her bucket at the person beside her and ran toward the barn. The massive wooden doors groaned on their hinges, flames dancing across the beams above. Smoke stung her eyes as she ducked inside, dropping to her knees where the air was clearer. "Hans!" she called out, crawling forward. "Hans, where are you?" A child's frightened sob answered from behind a stack of hay bales. Anna pushed through the choking smoke, finding the small boy curled up and trembling. "Come, little one," she whispered, gathering him in her arms. "Hold tight to me." The roof timbers crackled ominously overhead as Anna staggered toward the door, Hans's face pressed against her shoulder. Her lungs burned, vision blurring as she stumbled the final steps into the open air. She managed 3 more paces before her legs gave way, and she collapsed into the snow, still cradling the boy protectively. Strong arms lifted her immediately. Through watering eyes, she found herself looking up at Lucas's concerned face as he carried her away from the heat of the fire. Hans's mother rushed forward to claim her son, weeping with gratitude. "Make way," Lucas commanded, his voice ringing with authority. He settled Anna carefully on a bench the villagers brought forward, keeping one steadying hand on her shoulder as she coughed the smoke from her lungs. Someone pressed a cup of water into her trembling hands. When she could breathe more easily, Anna became aware of the crowd gathered around them. Lucas stood tall beside her, his presence commanding attention. "Today I witnessed courage greater than that of many nights," he declared, his words carrying across the hushed assembly. This woman thought nothing of her own safety to save a child's life. Such nobility of spirit knows no rank or station. A murmur of agreement rippled through the villagers. Anna saw heads nodding, heard blessing being whispered. The same people who had eyed her with suspicion now looked at her with respect and warmth. But beyond the crowd, she glimpsed several finely dressed figures watching from the castle gate's nobles who had been visiting Falkenhof. Their expressions were far less approving as they turned away, whispering behind gloved hands. "Let me help you back to your chamber," Lucas said softly, offering his arm. Anna accepted, her legs still unsteady as they made their way slowly up to the castle. By the time they reached her small room, exhaustion had settled deep in her bones. Lucas helped her to sit on the edge of her bed. "I'll have Maria bring up some healing tea," he said, but made no move to leave. Instead, he knelt before her, taking her soot-stained hands in his. "You could have died today," he whispered, his thumbs brushing gently across her knuckles. Anna's breath caught at the touch. She looked down at their joined hands, his so fine and strong, hers rough from work, and felt the unspoken truth hovering between them. In his eyes she saw the same longing that filled her own heart, a feeling neither dared name. For one precious moment, they remained thus, hands clasped, hearts speaking without words. Then footsteps in the corridor broke the spell. Lucas slowly released her hands and stood, inclining his head formally before stepping back. "Rest well," he said softly, and was gone, leaving Anna alone with the memory of his touch and the weight of things that could never be. Dawn painted the castle walls with golden light as servants rushed to prepare for their distinguished guest. Tapestries were hastily dusted, floors swept, and silver polished until it gleamed. Anna worked alongside the others, her hands raw from scrubbing. While her heart grew heavier with each passing hour, the thunder of hooves announced the arrival. Through the courtyard gates rolled an elaborate carriage, its wooden panels decorated with gilt scrollwork that caught the winter sun. 4 matched white horses drew the elegant conveyance, their harnesses jingling with brass ornaments. Anna stood with the other servants, pressed against the cold stone wall as the carriage door opened. Baroness Adelaide emerged like a vision from a dream, her emerald silk gown rustling as she descended. Diamonds sparkled at her throat and ears, catching light with every graceful movement. Her golden hair was arranged in perfect curves beneath a feathered hat, and her complexion glowed with the peace of one who had never known want. "Welcome to Falkenhof, my lady," Lucas said, bowing deeply as he helped her from the carriage. His voice carried the proper tone of courtly respect, yet Anna noticed how stiffly he held himself. "Sir Lucas," Adelaide replied, her smile warm but measured. "How pleasant to see you again. And Uncle Heinrich, how well you look." The elderly nobleman beamed with satisfaction as he took her hand. "Come inside, child. We've prepared a fine welcome for you." Anna watched them sweep into the great hall, a procession of silk and velvet, of tinkling laughter and refined conversation. She followed with the other servants, carrying wine jugs for the welcome feast. The great hall blazed with candlelight, making the Baroness's jewels dance like stars. Through the elaborate supper, Anna moved quietly among the guests, refilling goblets. Her throat tightened each time she glimpsed Lucas and Adelaide seated side by side at the high table. They made such a handsome pair, both noble, both refined, both born to privilege and power. Uncle Heinrich rose as the main course was cleared away, tapping his goblet for attention. "My dear friends," he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "it gives me the greatest pleasure to share joyous news. The negotiations for the marriage between Sir Lucas von Falkenhof and the Baroness Adelaide have progressed most satisfactorily." A murmur of approval rippled through the gathered nobles. Anna's hands trembled as she clutched her wine pitcher, forcing herself to keep pouring as Heinrich continued. "Within the month, we expect to finalize the contract that will join these two noble houses. Let us raise our glasses to the future happiness of Sir Lucas and his bride." The hall erupted in cheers and congratulations. Anna glimpsed Lucas's face tight and unsmiling despite his polite nods of acknowledgement. But it didn't matter now. The die was cast. That night, Anna lay awake in her narrow bed, listening to her children's steady breathing. Before the first hint of dawn touched the sky, she rose silently and packed their few belongings. She wrapped bread and cheese in a cloth, tucking it into her bundle along with the warm shawl one of the kitchen maids had given her. Waking her sleepy children, she helped them dress in the dark. "We must be very quiet," she whispered, lifting her drowsy daughter. Her son rubbed his eyes but didn't question. He had learned early that sometimes they must flee in darkness. The castle slept as Anna led her children through the servants' entrance. Fresh snow had fallen in the night, muffling their footsteps as they crossed the courtyard. At the gate, Anna paused, looking back at the looming walls that had sheltered them these past weeks. Tears froze on her cheeks as she whispered a prayer into the pre-dawn stillness. "Lord, grant him joy," she breathed, though her heart felt like lead in her chest. "Let him find happiness with his noble bride, even if I cannot stay to see it." The children stumbled beside her as they made their way down the snowy road. In the distance, barely visible through the morning mist, rose the spires of St. Anne's convent. Anna had heard they sometimes took in women in need, teaching them to spin and weave in exchange for shelter. It would have to be enough. Her daughter whimpered from cold, and Anna lifted her, though her arms ached. "Just a little further, my loves," she murmured, though each step away from Falkenhof felt like walking on broken glass. Just a little further now. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Lucas strode through the castle halls, his boots echoing against the stone floors. A servant's hurried whisper confirmed his fears. Anna's chamber lay empty, her few possessions gone. His heart clenched as he burst into his uncle's study, where Heinrich sat reviewing ledgers by candlelight. "You drove her away." Lucas's voice trembled with barely contained emotion. "Was that your plan all along?" Heinrich looked up calmly, setting down his quill. "The woman made her own choice, nephew. and a wise one at that. Now you can focus on what truly matters, securing our family's future through a proper marriage. Proper? Lucas planted his hands on the heavy oak desk. What is proper about forcing two hearts apart? About measuring worth in coins rather than character? You speak like a foolish boy. Heinrich rose, his face hardening. Falkenhof teeters on the edge of ruin. The Baroness's dowry would restore our lands, repair our holdings. Would you sacrifice generations of legacy for a common widow? I would sacrifice false pride for true honor, Lucas declared. The legacy I choose to uphold is one of integrity, not merely wealth. That evening, the great hall blazed with candlelight as nobles gathered for the council feast. Platters of roasted meats and winter vegetables crowded the long tables, while servants hurried between guests with pitchers of wine. The air hummed with expectant whispers. Surely tonight would bring the formal announcement of Lucas's engagement to Adelaide. Lord Werner, a portly baron, raised his goblet. Come, Sir Lucas. Let us toast to your upcoming nuptials. The Baroness Adelaide will make a fine mistress for Falkenhof. Other nobles joined in, their voices growing insistent. Yes, declare it properly. Let us celebrate the match. Lucas slowly rose from his seat, his face grave in the flickering light. The hall fell silent, waiting for the expected words. But when he spoke, his voice rang with unexpected strength. My lords and ladies, I cannot announce what you wish to hear. Instead, I must speak of true nobility, not the kind marked by titles and lands, but by the content of one's heart. He drew a deep breath. I have seen such nobility in Anna Muller, a woman who risks her life to save others, who teaches children their letters expecting no reward, who faces hardship with grace and kindness. Scandalized gasps and mutters rippled through the hall. Heinrich's face darkened like a thundercloud. Nephew, you forget yourself. No, uncle. For the first time, I truly know myself. Lucas's voice carried to every corner. Anna has shown more virtue than any titled lady I have known. Her presence has brought light to these cold halls, warmth to hearts long frozen by pride. The murmurs grew to a near roar. Ladies whispered behind their hands while lords shifted uncomfortably in their seats. In the midst of the chaos, Baroness Adelaide rose with fluid grace, her silk skirts rustling. The hall fell silent once more. Sir Lucas speaks with rare honesty, she said, her voice clear and steady. And I will not be party to binding a man whose heart belongs to another. She turned to face the assembled nobles, her bearing regal. I withdraw from any marriage negotiations with honor intact, both his and mine. The silence deepened as Adelaide's words sank in. She offered a small, dignified smile. True nobility, as our host has reminded us, lies not in birth but in actions. I choose to act with grace rather than cling to what is not rightfully mine. The gathered nobles sat in stunned silence, many looking between Adelaide's serene face and Lucas's determined stance. Heinrich remained frozen in his chair, his carefully laid plans crumbling before him. But in the quiet that followed Adelaide's declaration, something shifted in the great hall of Falkenhof, as if ancient stones themselves sighed with relief at truth finally spoken aloud. The winter wind howled through Falkenhof's courtyard as Lucas mounted his stallion. His cloak whipped around him in the strengthening storm, but his heart burned with a fire that no cold could quench. Without waiting for a lantern or provisions, he spurred his horse through the gates, leaving behind the shocked whispers and his uncle's angry calls. Snow pelted his face as he followed the winding road, his keen eyes searching the white ground. There, faint impressions in the fresh snow showed where 3 pairs of feet had passed. His chest tightened at the thought of Anna and her children trudging through this bitter night. The tracks led toward St. Agnes's convent, a day's walk from the castle. But on horseback, through the driving snow, Lucas knew he could close the distance. His mount's hooves thundered against the frozen earth as they raced past dark forests and sleeping villages. Please, he whispered into the wind, Let me find them before it's too late. Hours passed as the storm grew fiercer. Lucas's fingers grew numb on the reins, but he pressed on, following those precious footprints that the snow had not yet erased. As dawn approached, the convent's stone walls emerged from the swirling white, its windows glowing with welcoming candlelight. His heart leaped when he saw 3 small figures approaching the heavy wooden gates. Anna stood there, her children huddled against her skirts, their faces pale with exhaustion. She raised a trembling hand to pull the bell rope, just as Lucas called out, "Anna, wait!" She turned, her eyes wide with disbelief as Lucas dismounted, his boots crunching in the deep snow. Without hesitation, he fell to his knees before her, heedless of the cold seeping through his breeches. "Do not hide yourself away behind these walls," he pleaded, his voice rough with emotion. "Your light is meant to shine in the world, not be sealed away in cloistered shadows." Anna's lips trembled. "My lord, I cannot stay where my presence brings shame to your house." "Your uncle made that clear enough. Let my uncle keep his pride and his precious titles," Lucas declared. "I have found something far more valuable, a heart that matches my own in courage and devotion." Tears froze on Anna's cheeks as she shook her head. "But what of your duty?" "The Baroness, Adelaide herself, released me, understanding what my uncle could not, that true nobility dwells in actions, not ancestry." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle despite his freezing fingers. "Your compassion, your strength, your tender care for all who cross your path, these mark you as noble as any crowned queen." Anna's children, who had been watching with wide eyes, suddenly broke free from their mother's skirts. They ran to Lucas, little hands clutching at his snow-covered cloak. Her son buried his face in the rough wool, while her daughter tugged at Lucas's sleeve. "Please don't send us away," the little girl whispered. "We want to stay with you." Lucas gathered them close, his eyes never leaving Anna's face. "I offer you not charity or mere shelter, but my heart, my name, my future. Will you share them with me?" Anna's resolve crumbled as she watched her children clinging to this man who had proved himself so different from all others of his rank. Their joy reflected in their faces, their trust so pure and complete, moved her deeply. In their eyes, she saw the promise of a future she had never dared to dream possible. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Yes." Lucas rose from his knees, snow falling from his cloak. In 3 strides he reached Anna and drew her into his embrace, the children pressing close around them. As the storm began to gentle, soft flakes drifted down upon the family standing before the convent gates, nature itself seeming to bless their union with a blanket of pure white. The rising sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the snow-covered scene. A knight who had chosen love over duty, a widow who had found courage to trust again, and 2 children whose faith had helped bridge the gap between 2 worlds. The chapel of Falkenhof Castle glowed with hundreds of beeswax candles, their warm light dancing across stone walls that had witnessed centuries of noble ceremonies. Now, on this winter morning, those same walls embraced both aristocrats and commoners who gathered to hear the banns of marriage between Sir Lucas von Falkenhof and Anna Muller. The village priest's voice echoed through the hushed space as he read the traditional words. "If any person knows cause or just impediment why these 2 persons should not be joined together in holy matrimony, ye are to declare it." Silence fell, broken only by the gentle crackling of candle flames. Uncle Heinrich, standing in his place of honor, pressed his lips together but remained quiet. The past weeks had softened his stern demeanor, particularly after witnessing how Anna's presence had brought new life to the castle. Though his pride still struggled with the match, peace in his household meant more than ancient prejudices. When the time came for the wedding itself, the ceremony proved modest compared to the grand affairs usually expected of nobility. Yet there was a radiance that no amount of gold or jewels could match. Anna wore a simple gown of cream-colored wool, adorned only with careful embroidery done by her own hands. Her children stood beside her, their faces shining with joy as they watched their mother join hands with the man who had opened his heart to them all. "Lucas, take thee Anna." His voice carried clear and strong through the chapel, speaking the ancient vows that bound noble to commoner, erasing the barriers between their worlds. As the priest pronounced them man and wife, a soft murmur of approval rippled through the gathered crowd. The castle servants stood shoulder to shoulder with village folk, all differences forgotten in the face of true love's triumph. Even the cook, who had first eyed Anna with suspicion, wiped tears from her weathered cheeks. In the days that followed, Anna stepped into her role as Lady of Falkenhof with the same quiet grace she had shown as a widow seeking shelter. She moved through the castle not as one who had won a prize, but as one who had found her true home. The kitchen still knew her careful touch, and she established a small school in one of the unused halls, teaching letters to both noble and common children alike. As evening settled over the castle on this winter day, Anna stood at the great window overlooking the courtyard. Below, her children played in the fresh snow, their laughter rising clear and sweet in the gathering dusk. Their game of chase led them past servants carrying evening meals and stable boys leading horses to rest, all pausing to smile at their innocent joy. Lucas's footsteps sounded behind her, and then his arms settled warm and sure across her shoulders. Anna leaned into his embrace, her heart full as she watched their family's happiness unfold below. "Sometimes," she whispered, her voice soft with wonder, "I remember that night when our cottage roof collapsed. We had nothing but ashes and ruin, and I feared my children would never know warmth again." Lucas drew her closer, his thumb gently stroking her shoulder. "And now?" Anna turned to face him, her eyes bright with grateful tears. "Now we have everything that truly matters: a hearth to gather round, a family to love, and a heart that opened not just a castle's doors, but embraced us completely. Thank you for watching." Stories like this remind us who we are. If something touched your heart, go ahead and subscribe. I'll be back tomorrow with another story that just might stay with you.